Welcome to another episode of Washington in Focus. I'm your host, Tim Klauser, with the Center Square's Western Washington reporter, Spencer Pauly, here to talk about two bills that the Seattle Land Use Committee just fast-tracked amid ongoing budget challenges that they have. Apparently, these bills are supposed to align the city's permitting review process with the state's in an effort to boost affordable housing. Spencer, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what these bills really do?
Sure. So we're focusing in on two city council bills here that are set for an expedited vote soon, I should just say, at the time of this recording. But basically, these two bills amend the city's municipal code and existing building code. And the goal is to limit these hurdles for housing construction. So the first bill aligns Seattle's permit review process with the state's default project permit review timeline. Now, what this does is it basically fixes these delays in projects. So this means that, the permit review process can just slow down housing construction and ultimately economic growth. That's an issue that Seattle has flagged, and not only is this Seattle City Council Chair Sarah Nelson's proposal, but aligns with a lot of what the mayor, Bruce Harrell, has been working to do, which is just cutting the fat on this design review process in order to build up affordable housing at a faster rate. It's no surprise, and something you and I have talked about multiple times on this show about Seattle's lack of affordable housing. Now, by cutting this permit review process, this expedites the construction, right? And this is what Nelson said about this proposed bill, is that these delays can jeopardize the financing of these projects because, the banks want to know when they're going to get to return on their investment. So that bill is going to be voted on here soon at the time of this recording. I should note that both of these bills had a unanimous do pass recommendation from the city council. So I think I can say pretty confidently that they will be ultimately approved here. Now, the other bill it amends Seattle's construction codes, and it limits the areas for which these substantial alterations can be required to buildings greater than 7,000 square feet in gross area. Now, when you look at these bills and the summaries and the fiscal notes, basically what you find is that if the permitting volume remains stable in Seattle by 2030, this legislation, they estimate, could support the reactivation of more than 50 small commercial tenant spaces by reducing the time-consuming regulatory barriers. Now, this goes along with what I was saying, how this just speeds up the process here, and we're trying to build affordable housing at a faster rate. But, of course, that comes with some downsides, right?
Yeah, it sounds like they want to take a bunch of, say, the vacant commercial spaces and other businesses that have since emptied in the last few years around Seattle and kind of convert that into affordable housing. I've heard a lot of municipalities trying to do this, whether it be Seattle, Spokane, and other areas around the state and country. This sounds like a great idea. I mean, so they're essentially taking their permitting process and shortening the length of review. I saw that there was 3 different types of permits in your story. We don't need to get into the nitty gritty of each, but it essentially takes that time period down to the default at the state. Now, I wonder what impact that might have. I mean, is this pretty routine? Is this something that they might miss out on things like crime trends, other impacts to the city through this review process? Kind of a few things to consider there, right?
Well, let's talk about crime trends, because there's like this public perception that with affordable housing comes maybe crime, right? It's kind of an awkward thing to bring up, but it is a flagged potential that the public thinks about. But I found research about this. So affordable housing reduces crime by stabilizing families and curbing homelessness. Now, this aligns with what we've talked about countless times is it about homelessness in general. Is it a housing problem or is it a substance abuse problem? Now, this is the sales study I looked at. So obviously they're looking at that housing prevents people from committing crimes because they just have a roof over their heads, and that if they just have any kind of housing, that there's no crime uptick. And that's what the data shows within Seattle. Now, this is from 2020 where I found this. So who knows what's changed since COVID, right? Over 5 years ago. But that's what I found. But still, I think that is something to consider. you're seeing a lot of Seattle neighborhoods, especially with higher income, sweated out about maybe having more affordable housing within their neighborhood. And that's something I think we should think about when we, fix this design review process and we see more and more affordable housing getting built at a faster rate. Now, I think, Tim, we talked about crime, of course, but there's also the other issue, not necessarily an issue, but when we're seeing more permits, you're getting more cash to the city. Mm-hmm. The Seattle Department of Construction and Inspections, 90% of their budget comes from user fees, not taxes. So that means these permits generate more fees. So what you're seeing is they're teeing up a permitting boom to juice the department's fee haul. And this is right before any kind of budget knife drops because the city's dealing with a budget deficit. So, with 90% of the department's monies coming from builders, you're getting a lot of short-term cash. But we have to think about the safety lapses with just the fast and design review process. Tim, these process were here in the first place to prevent any kind of disaster from these buildings. And so you might see recalls or higher insurance rates. And so that's going to set up tomorrow's problems.
Yeah. And you said one of the bills would essentially limit the amount of renovations that's done on, say, these big commercial spaces that are already existing, 7,000 square feet or more. I mean, some of these buildings could be decades old. And when you rush this permitting review process, maybe say you miss something in terms of safety that you would have caught with a longer permitting review process. And then now these are hiccups or say issues with these units that tenants are going to run to when they get into them.
Mm-hmm. Now, yeah, I think also, Tim, this is something I just see personally in Seattle is you see core like blocks and blocks transition from an old house to something new. And a lot of these modern buildings look very stale, maybe is the best way to phrase it. They all have that same kind of modern look. And just based on my own observations, it looks like it's cheaply made, cheaper quality wood. And that's going to cause issues within 10 years. So a lot of these developers are creating this kind of housing, profiting off of high rents. Seattle is continuing to see rent increase and increase and increase. Now, if they have to dedicate a certain amount of their units to affordable housing, that's one thing. The majority of their housing goes towards higher income. And so this is just going to be a city full of issues with their housing in 10 to 20 years when that quality material starts to deteriorate. And so I think a lot of this is something to consider when you're seeing these fast and design review periods and you're seeing more and more affordable housing being built. Now, these buildings, as big as they are, they can be built within 6 months. I've seen it. And that's telling you enough that a lot of this is just kind of cut and paste and cheaply made. I think it's going to be an issue here, Tim.
Yeah, it really seems like Seattle's kind of got a double-edged sword here. I mean, on one hand, they have the homelessness crisis, and a large portion of the city's workforce lives outside of the Seattle just because of how expensive it is to live there. But on the other hand, I mean, in trying to fast track this affordable housing, you risk creating an overcapacity, building too much affordable housing. And I know studies might say, it doesn't lead to increases in crime, but, when you do build lots of affordable housing, you invite certain aspects of crime to that area just through those lower rates. Not to say that everyone that's low income is seeking to commit crimes, but that's just the reality of the situation. But
it's definitely perception. It's the public perception there, Tim. And it's something obviously it's on the radar for a lot of Seattle neighborhoods, especially people who have lived in their neighborhoods for decades, right? And then you start seeing these affordable housing. People are afraid of seeing their neighborhoods turn to crime-ridden. It's definitely a concern and something that I will definitely keep an eye on in the future here, pending this the approval of these two bills, which, Tim, I'm pretty confident is going to happen here.
Spencer, we appreciate your coverage on this, and definitely something we'll continue to keep our eyes on moving forward. And for any readers wanting to catch more of Spencer's coverage, you can read it at thecentersquare.com. Otherwise, this has been another episode of Washington in Focus.